Call this meeting of Lima City Council to order. We'll begin tonight's meeting with the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, as we celebrate the resurrection of your Son, Jesus, we ask that you guide our minds, guide our hearts, help us to make decisions in the best interest of the city of Lima with a kind spirit and a forgiving attitude. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll have a clerk call the roll.
Mr. Gordon?
Here.
Mr. McLean?
Here.
Mr. Lowe?
Here.
Mr. Tebben?
Here.
Miss Adams?
Here.
Mr. Glenn?
Here.
Mrs. Miles? Here. And Mr. Nixon.
Here. First on the agenda tonight is scheduled public hearings, and the first one is a rezoning of 540 South Collins. I'll have the clerk read the call.
Notice is hereby given that on April 6, 2015 at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers, 50 Town Square, Lima, Ohio, a public hearing will be held on the following. To modify the applicable city zoning code for a parcel located at 540 South Collins Avenue from residential Class 1 to business Class 1 within Lima, Allen County, Ohio. The petition is for an office expansion. Linda D. Rumbaugh, trustee, initiated this petition that the City Planning Commission endorsed. Any person desiring to be heard on said matter may do so at the time and place herein specified. The applicable reports, maps, and other documents are filed in the council clerk's office and open to public inspection.
Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to the rezoning of 540 South Collins? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Mr. President, my name is David Rodabaugh. I'm an attorney here in Lima. My address is 234 North Main Street in Lima. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner, Linda Rumbaugh, as trustee. The property requested for rezoning is property that is across the street from property my client's Rumbaugh's already owned. And if you know where the VA building is there on South Collins, it would be across the street from that. The purpose of the rezoning from an R1 to Business 1 is to allow for additional parking in conjunction with the operation of the VA building. Currently, as we went through the rezoning process, there is a requirement under the code for a buffer, about a 10-foot buffer. At this time, the structure is only going to be used for an office building at such time as it is used for additional parking and for, in conjunction with the current business of the VA building. My clients have agreed to comply with all the zoning or the buffer requirements that are required when you have a rezoning from an R1 when it's adjacent to R1 to a B1 that then divides the B1 business district from the residential district. My client, Ken Rumbaugh, is present tonight. If there's any specific questions, it was approved by the City Planning Commission.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue of rezoning of 540 South Collins? The third and final call, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to the question of rezoning 540 South Collins? Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed. The next public hearing is on amending the zoning code for 535 West Spring Street. I'll have the clerk read the call for that.
Notice is hereby given that on April 6, 2015 at 7 p.m. in Council Chambers, 50 Town Square, Lima, Ohio, a public hearing will be held on the following. To amend the city zoning code to include a wider category of commercial recreational uses in B1 and or B2 business districts within Lima, Allen County, Ohio. The petition is filed for a commercial recreational facility at 535 West Spring Street. Ed and Sandy Monfort initiated the petition that the City Planning Commission endorsed. Any person desiring to be heard on said matter may do so at the time and place herein specified. The applicable reports, maps, and other documents are on file in the council clerk's office and are open to public inspection.
Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to the amendment of the zoning code for 535 West Spring Street? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. For the second time, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to the amended rezoning code for 535 West Spring Street? Third and final call, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak to the amended zoning code for 535 West Spring Street? Seeing none, I'll declare that public hearing closed. Moving on to privilege of the floor, Julianne Frankhauser regarding guiding light.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julianne Frankhauser, and I'm here to represent Guiding Light Ministries. I came to inform you of our program. As you know, we have homelessness issues within our community, causing us to be widely aware of the housing issues as well, which is a different topic. What I hope to offer to the community, since we started 2 years ago, is to provide guidance not only to our youth but to women of all ages on understanding the importance of being productive citizens in our community. When a young lady presents herself to our maternity home, the Guiding Light Home at 592 South Main Street, we start by short-term goal setting and long-term goals. We help them with life skills. We give them classes on basic needs such as cooking, laundry, and everything, because we have found that they lack in these areas. And then we are left to help provide that in our community of long-term government assistance. We also felt that there was a need to help reduce repeat pregnancy rates, which we see often within our community as they walk the streets. I'm just hoping to make a difference. We have made an impact with very many women of all ages. Right now we are serving teens to young adults. As you see in your packet, we do have a grand opening for another home that will provide respite care for teenage young ladies and also any women who fall through the cracks that need our services of life coaching with the residential option. It is definitely a place that will help transition them into the community, have an understanding of self-sufficiency, and things are going very well. You'll see our latest newsletter. And also, briefly, I put in there the Maslow's hierarchy theory that we follow. As you can see there, the basic needs of food, water, shelter, then the next layer, safety and security, and then the next, love and belonging. Immediately they have those resources when they step in the door, which allows them to see beyond their circumstances, gives them a sense of hope, and they're able to then reach out for whatever they're looking for, whether it's employment, finishing their education, and beyond that. So I thank you for your time. Wanted to inform you. You can come and see the place and our new home, and at any time, call me for a tour. All right, thank you.
Thank you. The consent calendar,
Mr. President,
Mr. Tevin.
I move that item A of the consent calendar be received, filed, and approved.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive, file, and approve item A on the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 1.
From the Director of Community Development regarding legislation to place tax assessments.
Mr. President,
Mr. Glenn.
I move the communication number 1, receive and file legislation on the night agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 1. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 2.
From the City Engineer regarding legislation to enter into a contract with Brenneman Excavating, Inc.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams.
I move that communication number 2 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 2. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I just wanted to make note for the public that this is addressing stormwater drainage improvements at Lincoln Park and on Latham Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 3.
From the City Engineer regarding legislation to enter into a contract with VTF Excavation.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams.
I move that communication number 3 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 3. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I just wanted to make note that this is the All Lima Kibbe Street project. It will begin April and end until October of this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 4.
From the Director of Public Works regarding legislation to purchase equipment.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that communication number 4 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 4. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 5.
From the Director of Human Resources regarding the Civil Service Rule Number 7.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lowe?
I move that communication number 5 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 5. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 6.
From the Finance Director regarding legislation to enter into a contract with Perry Protec.
Mr. President,
Mr. Tevin?
I move that communication number 6 be received and filed. Legislation is on tonight's agenda.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 6. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 7.
From Chief Martin regarding liquor permit holders.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that communication number 7 be received, filed, and referred to council of the whole and to the police department.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 7 and refer it to council's committee of the whole and to the police department. Is there any discussion?
Mr.
Mr.
President. Go ahead.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes, this communication, as stated, came from our Chief Martin. In the first paragraph of this letter, it says, at this time, there is no permit holders in which we would object to the renewal of the permits. And what I don't want to get twisted is that we're not trying to take anybody's business from them. It has been stated and made a motion that we put in committee for all of us to sit down and talk and discuss. They have given us a layout of different calls at different area businesses where they have had calls, whether it be fighting, whether it be loud music, whether it be shots fired, sex offenses, any of that. What this meeting is going to do is allow us to sit down, we all come together and talk and see if we can work something out. This is not to pull anybody's license. We went through this about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago. It's a good process, and I'm glad that they're open to sit down and speak, and it will be, again, as I stated, for those listening, those that are at home, council as a whole. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes, I was echoing the same thing as Mr. Lowe, because it's very important that everyone be here on that date and be able to talk about what all went on. And I know I'm saying the same thing he said, but last year was a whole different story about what went on there. So we want everybody there to hear everything about it, because everybody got two sides to a story. And I'm willing to hear it all. And so we can make sure that we make a right decision on what direction we're going to be taking this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Is there any further discussion? I will just point out that I intend to call that meeting for April 13th, next Monday night at 6:30 PM. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 8.
From the Ohio Division of Liquor Control regarding permit renewal objections.
Mr. President,
Mr. Gordon?
I move that communication number 8 be received, filed, and referred to council of the whole and to the police department.
Second.
The motion and the second is to receive and file communication number 8 and refer it to council's committee of the whole and the police department. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Communication number 9.
From the Ohio Division of Liquor Control regarding a new permit for the FOE at 800 West Rock.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean.
I move that communication number 9 be received and filed, and the clerk authorized to file with no objections.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to receive and file communication number 9 and to authorize the clerk to notify the Ohio Division of Liquor Control of no objections. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 10.
From the Ohio Attorney General regarding the Moving Ohio Forward demolition grant.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Miles?
I move that communication number 10 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to receive and file communication number 10. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Communication number 11.
From the administration regarding the civil service process and establishing eligibility list for hiring.
Mr. President,
Mr. Lowe.
I move that communication number 11 be received and filed.
Second.
The motion, the second, is to receive and file communication number 11. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the motion carries. Reports of officials, Chief Martin.
Mr. President, members of council, first of all, I thank you again for allowing me to be here tonight to speak about our 2014 crime numbers. I'm sure you have probably been wondering why we haven't given you these numbers before today, because normally it is something that we do in January or February. But with the changeover from the old Windstorm software that we used to use for our computer-aided dispatch system, and with the new to the new CMI system, which also includes record management software. We've had some issues in terms of getting that worked out, so that it did not, we were not able to provide the information in as timely manner as we normally would have. But going forward, we should be getting this to you again much earlier in the year from here on out. In the slide packets that were passed out to you, if you look at the second slide on page 1, that is just simply a reminder to everyone of what the Uniform Crime Report Part 1 crimes consists of, and this is what we have to report to the FBI's UCR office each year. If you look on page 2 at the top slide, that's got a breakdown of the number of offenses going back to 2008 for each year through 2014. And again, the 2008 year was the last year prior to our implementing pinpoint policing in Lima. So that is what we've used as the benchmark to show whether or not the pinpoint policing has been successful. And again, I will also, as I've stated many times before, never say that pinpoint policing is the only thing that's bringing those numbers down. I believe that there are a number of factors involved, but I certainly think that that is one important factor that has very much contributed to the positive trend that we've seen. And as you can see, going back to 2008, at a time when we had 4,821 total Part 1 offenses occur, to 2014, when there were 3,096. And if you look at the slide down below that, that demonstrates a decrease of 35.9%, or simply rounded to 36%. If you then look on page 3, again, being someone that is very visual, I like to see graphs and charts and things like that. So I have the numbers as they have declined graphed out there with the trend line showing. And then the next slide below that, again, lists what the UCR Part 1 violent crimes are. And if you'll notice, it is homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assaults, which includes all assault categories except for simple assaults. And when you look at the last page on the very last slide, it will show that the one part that quite honestly I'm a little bit disappointed by is that we did not see a bigger reduction than what we have in terms of the violent crime numbers last year. Although, again, with that being the smallest categories in terms of total numbers, it is more difficult to move it more in one direction or the other. But we are certainly hoping to see a bigger decrease in violent numbers this year. We're hoping with the reimplementation of neighborhood officers, as has been made possible due to the actions taken earlier this year by City Council. We're hoping that, again, that will be something that we can, as we get out into the neighborhoods and we're able to again, get reacclimated to the neighborhoods as we're able to gather more human intelligence on the who's who and the what's what in the neighborhoods. We're hoping to, again, be able to bring that number down even more. But even with that, even with the small decrease, at least it was a decrease, not an increase. It is something that certainly we want to apply ourselves to even better, and we'll continue looking for better ways of bringing those numbers down. And again, overall, we want to make sure that all of these numbers keep coming down, because again, as much as we like to solve crime once it's occurred, we believe it's even far more important to prevent it from occurring in the first place. Because even things like simple property crimes still traumatize the victims, and it still takes away their sense of security. It takes away their positive attitudes about the community, and just frankly, it hurts the community overall as a whole. So with that, are there any questions?
Mr. President.
Mr. Glenn?
Hey, Chief, I remember back in the past, we used to find out what areas this crime is being held at, and there's no area here this year, like the streets, names.
Well, again, we include all that in the annual report
On the
each
annual
year, and that will
report?
be
Okay,
included
cool.
in that again this year.
Okay, semi, thank you. I'm good.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, under reports of officials, Pete White regarding land bank update.
You give my hand to me. Tell you.
Good evening, Mr. President and Council. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the city's land bank program. Amy's handing out some information, and that information will be made available tomorrow on the Community Development website under the Land Bank tab. I'm going to talk this evening about the city's land bank program. Try to define a little bit what a land bank is and how the city runs their land bank. An ordinance adopted in January of 2000 created the Lima Land Acquisition and Neighborhood Development Bank, also known as the Land Bank. This was authorized by Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 5722. Basically, a land bank is created to take tax delinquent, non-productive land within the city and return it to a positive tax generating status. With the establishment of the land bank, we also established a land reutilization committee. Today, that committee consists of representatives from the city of Lima and Allen County. Members from the city are from the departments of community development, public works, the law department, building and zoning, and parks. And we also have members from the Allen County Treasurer's Office. The land bank was created to address some community concerns involving the impact that tax delinquent and vacant land has on the community. Some of the concerns were the extended effort that police and fire services had to endure with a surplus of vacant land. Also, the property maintenance code enforcement and demolition programs and the financial effect that had stretching the budgets. Also, delinquent land deters neighborhood development, brings down the housing quality and the quality of life in our neighborhoods. You look at page 4, there's a map. The purple on the map represents all the tax delinquent parcels located within the city of Lima. A breakdown of these parcels shows approximately 700 of these are vacant lots and 1,300 or so are structures that are tax delinquent. Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 5722, is the legal mechanism that allows the city to maintain a land bank. It is also what allowed us to establish a land bank. Some of the community benefits of a land bank are that we take tax delinquent properties, bring them to a positive tax-paying status. We can reduce the number of property maintenance and tax assessments that reoccur on the same parcel over and over. We can make tax delinquent parcels available for development that otherwise we would not be able to do because of the high dollar amount of delinquent taxes. A stat provided by the Allen County Treasurer's Office from parcels certified from the year 2011 and prior showed 728 vacant lots in the city that totaled $7.5 million in delinquent taxes. So that's a little over $10,000 in delinquent taxes on each one of those parcels on an average. Also, the land bank should improve property values and will provide a positive and aesthetic response when people go through our neighborhoods. There are several tools we use with the land bank to acquire property. There's the standard foreclosure with the sheriff's sale. We do accept donations of land. But the administrative foreclosure process is what we use most often nowadays. This process allows for the expedited foreclosure of unoccupied and tax delinquent land, and this is done through a board of revision established at the county level. There's a link there for anyone who would like more information on the board and its functions. The board members for 2015 from the county are Treasurer Rachel Gilroy is the chair, and Corey Noonan is the vice chair, and Rhonda Eddy Steinecker is the secretary of that board. With this process, the parcel itself has to meet certain qualifications. It has to be certified tax delinquent for 2 years. There can be no federal tax liens on the parcel. It cannot be a parcel that has been forfeited to the state of Ohio. There cannot be an active bankruptcy for the owner of that parcel. And the taxes or the total due has to be greater than the total market value of that parcel. Some of the qualifications for an applicant who's interested in the land bank: they must be an adjacent property owner. They should be current on city and county taxes. They can have no current property maintenance violations. And they must agree to combine the parcel that they want to acquire with their current property. If you're interested in development, you also must be current on your city and county taxes. You can have no property maintenance violations. You must have proof of the financial ability to complete a project on the land you're acquiring. You have to provide building and site plans which are approved by building and zoning, and you must complete construction within 2 years of approval of the plans. As of the end of March of 2015, the land bank has acquired 188 parcels since it began operating in the year 2000. Currently, we have 20 parcels that we're processing through the land bank. The land bank holds 42 parcels that we will sell for development or to an adjacent property owner to extend their yard. And we have sold 146 parcels of the 188 that have gone through the land bank since 2000. Below, you'll see a graph. The colors represent each of the methods that we can use to acquire land through the land process. You see a lot of blues before 2011. That was a traditional way with the sheriff's sale that we acquired property. And with the creation of the Board of Revision, that was a much more expedited process and cheaper process to acquire land, and that is the main method we use for acquiring parcels today. There's some photos where it says the solution, if you're interested. There's Habitat Home. We used the land bank to gather many parcels for Lima Senior High School. Also, mental health Services has acquired several lots to develop apartments. The Tech Center at Tech Drive and Third, we were able to acquire 5 lots for that construction. And also the land bank held the land that's now the Union Square project at Union and Elm. Some of the stats from 2014, we received 47 applications for parcels through the land bank. After review, 27 of these were actually eligible to move forward. In 2014, we received a total of 23 deeds. And those deeds break down like this. 13 were for side yard expansion or an adjacent owner. 6 went for development, and 4 were placed in public use. The voting record for the Land Reuse Committee in 2014, they approved 28 requests. 1 was under Ohio Revised Code 5722, which is the sheriff sale type tax foreclosure. 23 were through the Board of Revision at the county. We sold 3 properties that we held in the land bank, and another one was a donation that we received and were able to sell. Some of the reasons why these parcels are not eligible when we review applications: the applicant may have property maintenance violations, they might be delinquent on property taxes or city taxes, they're not the adjacent owner. Some of the other reasons could be that the parcel is just not tax delinquent yet and we're not legally able to acquire it, or there could be bankruptcy or federal tax liens on the parcel. As we move to the future with the land bank, the city and county land bank methods are under review. State laws changed several times over the years, and we're reviewing our standards and policies, providing updates and confirming our compliance with the state law. We're also reviewing other cities' land bank processes to see if we can glean anything so we can use that to improve our land bank process. If we ever are able to expand our land bank activity, we would like to not only acquire more lots, but possibly some with structures. This provides the challenge of the cost of acquisition and even more the cost of maintaining a lot with a structure until the city's able to sell it. Also, there's a challenge of how we're going to support this cost. We would also like to promote more commercial development with new development and existing commercial customers expanding. We're always looking for support from the community. We have a challenge. We'd like to inspire participation from investors, bankers, and developers, which at this time is very minimal from the land bank perspective. Are there any questions?
Mr. President.
Mr. Lowe?
Pete, I'm glad to see this report. Again, we're going to ask that we, some way, somehow, very soon, hold a public meeting where individuals can come in and see this for themselves and ask questions. Everybody doesn't have access to the internet, and everybody's not going to come out and listen to what you just said. But I guess my issue is page 9 says parcels sold in public use is 146. So we're only averaging about 9 a year. So people aren't, either they don't understand it, or somehow, some way, we have an individual who's saying, well, you can't build this next to you. I think the regulations, I was in discussion, and one of the regulations is, well, we don't want garages popping up all over. Anything is better than a blatant site. If we're going to ask individuals, well, let me back up. We have schools here right now who are having issues even getting books, getting money, getting funding. We keep saying we need to invest in the kids. One way is through a bigger tax base so they can receive the revenue and do what they need to do. We are sitting on parcels, and I don't quite understand that. If an individual is willing to extend their yard or maybe just fence it in and willing to pay that tax, I think we need to be out there throwing it at them, if not giving it to them. And individuals just don't know. And that's why I asked for this in November, because I know individuals have a little extra at the first of the year where they might be able to buy into this program. We got, like on page 11, where you talk about the development of the public use, we use half of what the city used, half of what happened, or half of the houses that went down. So instead of us, well, that's no way the way you can say it. In the top, page 11, under the land bank stats, you got the yard expansion, then we use 6 for development and 4 for public use. Okay, now if we can use it, why can't the residents use it? We need to get the word out so individuals can get this property. I just feel that we're sitting on too much stuff, and it's because of lack of education. Individuals don't know that it's out there. So I guess what I'm saying in a nutshell is if community development can set up something, advertise it, where individuals can know what's happening, and I know we got 8 individuals can't blanket a whole city. So I think if maybe, shoot, we could sit here and put a camera and show it on Channel 2 or something and inform individuals outside of a slideshow where they can come and they can ask questions and be informed. I think that's what we need to do. Now, we keep saying we want to support the schools, and I'm a Spartan to the heart. If there's a way that we can get them more money, I think that we should do that. And that's where I stand. All right, thank you.
Sure. I just want to clarify something. Under 2014 Land Bank disposition on page 11,
Yes,
where it says development, those are parcels we sold to either another agency.
business, but we grouped them, correct?
Those for instance, there are 2 parcels in there that went to the Mental Health Board for their expansion at Vine and
They were
Main.
side by side. We grouped them. What I'm saying is, if we can group them for them, we need to be able to group them for the residents. We need to let them know, hey, this property is available, do you want it? That's what I'm saying. Now, if we could do it for businesses, we can do it for individuals. And that's where I'm at. I just think that the reason that we're not getting the response is because they don't know. They don't know. So that's why I had asked for 2 meetings in January. And then that allows the administration and out. So they can't say, well, listen, it's not that the administration didn't try. It's not that council didn't try. You didn't come. That's all I'm saying.
I'll be glad to provide any type of training or informational meeting on the land bank
Thank you very much.
anytime.
Mr. President, I want to
Mr.
say,
Glenn.
only thing I got to say though, is it's very important. We work very hard to get rid of some of this land. 'Cause we got to take care of this land, am I right? It costs us money every year that we paying people to cut this grass and all that. And if you see that, we're getting a lot of money cut. You know, they're already saying they're cutting the CBG money down. And we come every year, we'll come in with people's not paying us for this, it's coming out of our pocket. And I really think that it's a lot of red tape. I don't know where to go through the state or federal saying we gotta go through these, the way we go about doing this. But a lot of land we got, we need to try to get rid of it. Anybody can get it right away, going by the criteria we got here. But I don't wanna see us continue paying hundreds of thousands of dollars cutting this grass, because we need to send that money somewhere else, and we can save some money, put there, because when they get ready to do the budget, when the financial committee get ready to do the budget, we're gonna have money to use for grass cutting. And most of it coming from the land banks too, that we gotta take care. So that'd be one reason that we can just push, try to figure a way out. And I agree with Mr. Lowe that we can get rid of this land quick as possible. But like I said, I don't know the red tape on it, because the government saying we gotta do it this way, we gotta do it that way. But we need to do something about it real quick, due to the money is getting cut back. That's what I'm saying. Good job, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Is there any other questions for Mr. White? Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it. Ordinance 6815.
Levying special assessments for property maintenance code charges on premises in the city of Lima, Ohio.
Mr. President,
Mr. Glenn.
I move that ordinance, 6515 be passed on its first reading. 6815 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 6815 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Miss Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 6815 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 6915.
Amending the city zoning code from residential 1 to class 1 business for a parcel located at 540 South Collins Avenue in the city of Lima is herein described.
Mr. President,
Miss Adams?
I move that ordinance 69-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 6915 on its first reading. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Miss Adams?
I attended the City Planning Commission meeting on this issue because of the location is in the Fifth Ward. They are very responsible owners, and I know going forward, if the activity would change from a business office, they will meet the standards set by privacy fence and all. The adjacent property owner was in favor of it as well, and I'm planning on supporting it tonight.
Thank you, Miss Adams. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Miss Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
And Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 6915 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7015.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Perry Protect for the purchase of computers for various city departments.
Mr. President,
Mr. Tevin?
I move that ordinance 7015 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7015 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Miss Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7015 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7115.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a grant agreement with Allen County Public Health.
Mr. President,
Miss
I
Adams?
move that ordinance 71-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7115 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Miss Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
And Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7115 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7215.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Brenneman Excavating.
Mr. President,
Miss Adams?
I move that ordinance 72-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7215 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Miss Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
And Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7215 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7315.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with VTF Excavation for the All Lima Kibbe Street project.
Mr. President,
Miss Adams?
I move that ordinance 73-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7315 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Miss Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7315 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7415.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the purchase of equipment for the Public Works Department.
Mr. President,
Miss Adams?
I move that ordinance 74-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7415 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? I'll have the clerk call the roll.
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Miss Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7415 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7515.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with System Innovators Incorporated.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean?
I move that ordinance 7515 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7515 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7515 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7615.
Establishing the positions and classifications hereinafter set forth and fixing the salary and compensation of such positions and classifications, repealing existing inconsistent ordinances as herein described.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLean?
I move that ordinance 7615 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7615 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7615 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7715.
Amending section 672.14 of the codified ordinances of Lima, Ohio concerning pointing and discharging firearms and other weapons.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that ordinance 77-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7715 on its first reading. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I just want to remind other council members, 2 weeks ago during council, I gave a report from the committee, the Public Works Committee, where this was addressed. The next three ordinances, the action that the committee took, and we support these changes that you're seeing tonight. And that was reflected in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7715 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7815.
Amending section 1240.01 of the codified ordinances of Lima, Ohio concerning zoning definitions.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that ordinance 78-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7815 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7815 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Ordinance 7915.
Amending sections 1252.01 and 1252.02 of the codified ordinances of Lima, Ohio concerning Class 1 and Class 2 business districts.
Mr. President,
Ms. Adams?
I move that ordinance 79-15 be passed on its first reading.
Second.
The motion and the second is to pass ordinance 7915 on its first reading. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk call the roll?
Mr. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes.
Mr. Tevin?
Yes.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Mrs. Miles?
Yes.
Ordinance 7915 has been passed on its first reading by an 8-0 vote. Miscellaneous business. Mr. Gordon.
I would like to recognize our security officer in here, Randy Coley, for receiving the Jefferson Award.
You got a phone call, he left.
And, yeah, I just seen him go right out there. And other than that, I just want to remind people to be good to each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Mr. McLean?
I have nothing this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Mr. Lowe?
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, I'd like to thank our president for his opening prayer, where he recognized the true meaning of Easter, the resurrection of our Savior Jesus Christ. I appreciate that. Second thing I'd like to say is, yesterday, I was involved in an accident on 2nd and Central where a lady drove through the stop sign and T-boned my car. And I want to say it got real quick. And it got even more real when I seen the fire department pulling out jaws of life. But I want to tell you something. Their professionalism was absolutely superb. From the time we made the phone call to the time they got there was just a matter of minutes. I seen our whole neighborhood come together. Individuals were on the porch. There was many witnesses. Individuals that I had went to school with, hadn't seen in years, came out the woodworks. And they described which way she ran, what she had on. They all gave their names. They was willing to help the officers that came out. Officer Elkert, I can't remember the other gentleman, but their service was so good, and the professionalism was just really on point. And I just really, really appreciated that, along with A&D Towing. I got to put that out there. But the neighbors came together, and these were individuals that didn't really know me, but they seen wrong happen. And the reason I say wrong is because when the individuals did it, they fled. One went one direction, one went the other way. And everybody kind of came together very, very fast, and they were able to get the individuals that did that to my vehicle. But I just want to say hats off to the LPD and the fire department. And it felt good. Actually, it really felt good to be part of the city. And I seen the neighbors, the way they just came out and just huddled around and helped. And at the time when things are going on, you don't think about taking pictures, but individuals had photos and they sent them to me, and they didn't have to do that. But I just want to say thank you to anybody that's seen it, that helped out in any way, shape, fashion, or form. And that's all this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Mr. Tevin?
A few things this evening. The April meeting of the Boulevard Neighborhood Association will be tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at the Community Resource Center, 1440 West Spring. The speaker will be Tim DeHaven, and he will be sharing helpful lawn and gardening tips, which he is an expert. So that should be a great meeting. Just a reminder to those that are listening, it is amazing, and I don't know what it is about this spring, but the number of people parking on islands, using them as parking lots. You know, when it's noticed, it will be addressed. It's good. It'll be turned in. We have our junk auto officer back as of today, which I'm glad to see. And he made a big impact in the community last year. I expect he will have the same impact this year, but he does a great job, as he explained and others have witnessed, in informing the public and making them aware of what the regulations are. But ultimately, if enforcement action is needed, he will take it, and that's very good for us, for all of us. The issue of the liquor license renewal, I just want to remind people that the communication we received tonight from Major Baker on the establishments and the calls for service, this came out of City Council saying we don't want to be surprised when it comes time for liquor renewal. So this is something we've asked for, and I don't want anyone to be misled that this information, if establishments who have a high number of service calls to their establishment, the police department is absolutely engaging and willing to work with these establishments, but it could lead to a recommendation from City Council to object to the renewal of the liquor license. So it's not just to get together to talk about it, this is serious. It's their livelihoods, but it's our community, and we have businesses around some of these establishments that are really suffering quite a bit from the activity going on. So I hope that the council, the whole meeting is well attended, but I hope it's a productive meeting, and I hope that these numbers go down. That's the goal. But if they don't, there is ultimately a consequence. The last thing, I want to say hi to my grandson Anthony, who's here from Chicago. I always say hi to him. He happens to make it here when we have city council meetings. We're going to watch the basketball game together tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tevin. Ms. Adams?
Thank you, Mr. President. Hope Neighborhood Association will be meeting tomorrow night, April 7th at 6:30 at Unity Elementary School. I'd like to call a Public Works Committee meeting for next Monday, the 13th at 5 p.m. And I'd like to announce Citywide Pride 2015 cleanup. The deadline for application to obtain a dumpster is April 17th. The dates in May are May 2nd, 9th, 16th, and the 30th. And they're from 9 to 12. And any neighborhood, community organization, or group can apply for a dumpster and one of those dates that I mentioned. If you're interested, call Neighborhood Support at 419-221-5177. I know this will be discussed tomorrow night at the Hope Neighborhood meeting. They'll be deciding on a date to have this activity. It makes a great impact in the neighborhoods to be able to clean up neighborhoods, your lot, no hazardous waste of any kind. But it's a great coming together, and it really does have a great impact. Also, I would like to announce the Ottawa River Cleanup, Saturday, April 25th from 9 to 12. They meet at the sign-in is at the Red Cross building, and you'll get your locations, gloves, wear boots, jeans, clothes that you expect to get dirty. Free lunch, t-shirt, and certificate of appreciation will be given. I have been supporting that for the last 5 years, and it's a great to see the schools support it, area schools, and they do that as part of their civic duty and time that they get credit for. I know later we will hear the poundage that is collected, and with the brush and all that having been removed, it should be a lot easier for certain areas to be cleaned up. And again, it's a great activity for community to come together. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Glenn.
Just got a couple things here. Martin Luther King Neighborhood Association will have their meeting at 1 p.m. Thursday at Waterford Homes, and their guest speaker going to be their president. He will be discussing about the cleanup and different things we're going to do around there. Also, I know I got a lot of feedback on drug paraphernalia. I know we had just one parent showed up there. We had it at South School, so I'd like to thank South School for allowing us to have it there in the committee, and I will have a report on that. Wait for some information from the assistant law director. But great feedback, and a lot of folks came talking to me about it. But I wish you guys had came to the meeting. It's very important that you come to the meeting and discuss what you dislike or like about that. And I appreciate some of the stores around the area doing a good job. Without we putting law together right now, they are moving their drug pipes, and that's why I'm gonna call them drug pipes. That's what they use them for. Not considered to me drug paraphernalia, because you can go to jail or prison behind that. So I'll use the word from there. Also, our deadline for the unsolved murders is April the 15th, and we're hoping that we get some calls. I understand none came in right now, but I want to just put that out there. You know, a lot of folks, kids and grandparents, aunts and uncles, they still is not at peace with some of the unsolved murders we have here in our city. So I'm hoping that, but I just want to remind everybody the 15th is the deadline for that. Also, and I know I had a lot of folks talk to me at church yesterday about the Central Elm Street. About a light being there. Well, I proposed it. It was denied that no light can go up there. So I don't know. We might have to push it again to see how much traffic coming through there. At 5 o'clock, it's pretty dangerous there. At 5 when people trying to get through there. So I know they was saying that we need a light there, but that was proposed last year, and about that problem there. I'm glad Ms. Adams brought up about the dumps and stuff for April 17th. Is the deadline for that. We got a lot of cleaning up to do. I had opportunity Saturday, went around some of the areas. There's some target areas we got to hit, and also some of the code enforcement problems that I talked to a lot of folks. I know code enforcement was very busy with me calling today. We got bandit cars, which we got a car person coming back now. Trailers, you know, there's rules that trailers can't have tags. It can't be that you leave your dogs in them. There's a lot of things around there, but it's been about the whole Saturday, looking around the area to make sure we got everything cleaned up. And Easter, and I'm so happy about the Easter egg hunt they had at Municipal Center. It was great for our kids. They had some fun, and you know, and you love to see that. You don't get to see a lot of Easter egg hunting. Lima Senior had one. Their Powder Ash had sponsored one there. That's great. That's what we need to continue doing. Trying to continue working in there in the community. We got the manufacturing program. We need more people to get involved with that. There's a lot of jobs coming up, and I've been calling around. Next week I got to meet with a lot of different plants and different companies. I know we got a lot of kids coming out of college right now, want to make Lima their home. So I'm hoping that we get some higher level jobs come up for them. I want to see the kids come back home. I want to see all the kids come home. And that just improve our population, you know, and include the way of life for some of these kids. These kids want to come home. And they say, Mr. Glenn, ain't no job. I have a master's degree. So I've been going around trying to talk to everyone to help these kids out. If anybody know any employment, please give me a call, because we want to keep them here. We don't want them going to Columbus or going to Cincinnati or Dayton to go to work. They want to stay home. Yeah, so, yeah, but thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Mrs. Miles?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Westgate Neighborhood Association meeting will be Sunday, April 19th at 6:30 p.m. And of course, that meets at Chamberlain Huckery Funeral Home. Also, I wanted to commend Juliana Frankhauser for her work that she's doing in the community with the guiding light on South Main Street, and now with her new home that's opening up. So I would like to encourage each one of you, if you're available that day, to go out and support her for the ribbon cutting. She is doing a tremendous amount of work in the community. And one of the things that she is very good with is serving in the community. You know, there's a saying that says the indication of greatness is not power, prestige, and prosperity, but it's serving. And Juliana Frankhauser is truly a true servant in our community. As you may know, Lima, Allen County has the highest teen pregnancy rate, and she mentioned that. In addition to the highest teenage pregnancy rate, we also have a high infant mortality rate. And I believe a lot of that kind of goes in hand with teenagers having babies and not having the resources to be able to properly take care of these children here. And a lot of the teenagers do not have their prenatal care. So again, that contributes to the high infant mortality rate. And what Julianne is doing, she's taking these girls in that don't have a place to stay, and she's basically teaching them, you know, about taking care of themselves, you know, being healthy during their pregnancy. So again, with her opening up this second house here for homeless, she is really doing a great job here, and she needs the support of us. She needs the support of resources in the community to help her keep these two homes going, because she is giving 110%. So if any of you are available for the ribbon cutting, and then in addition, she's looking for donations. And if you want to stop by there, either the home on South Main Street, which is right across from 20th Century Bowling, for the unwed mothers, teenage mothers, and then for this new home that she's opening up. Please be there to help her out. She cannot do it herself. She is a product of this life. She was a teenage mother herself, and she said she received a lot of help when she was very young, and this is her way of paying back, giving back to the community, you know, that she was able to get resources to try to help these girls the way that she was helped. So again, if you can support her by being there for the ribbon cutting or just donate items to either one of the homes, it would be very, very great. It would be greatly appreciated. And finally, I just want to say, now that basketball season is over with, you know, high school basketball, congratulations to Lima Senior Spartans and to LCC T-Birds for a fabulous season. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mrs. Miles. Jesse, was anybody hurt in the accident?
No, we're fine.
Good. Glad of that. Just a reminder that Monday, the 13th at 6:30 p.m., there will be a meeting of the council, a meeting as a committee of the whole. It will be to review the information received this evening on our agenda regarding liquor permits, and we will go through that information in more detail and have discussion with the police department. and the law department and determine whether or not any objections will be filed. We will need to do that. I believe the deadline is by June 1st. So that's the purpose of the meeting, to discuss it, the statistics and everything else in more detail. Officer Colai, you stepped out as Councilor Gordon was trying to congratulate you on your nomination as our representative for the Jefferson Award. We wanted to congratulate you. Note to media, it's Colai, not Coley.
Coley? Coley, hey, new name.
I heard it pronounced that way, but we knew who they were talking about. I've got to ask a question, Chief Martin. I'm a little bit confused, and I want to just make sure that the public has got the right information. Is there a deadline on unsolved cases?
Yes, I'm-
There is no deadline in terms of being able to file charges or anything. I'm not sure what the deadline.
Mr. Glenn, what deadline were you referring to? You said April 15th as a deadline.
Oh, you must have been, I'm talking about, that's the deadline that, oh, you didn't know about, we put a reward out for the unsolved murders. And it had a
You
dead-
have a reward out,
Yes.
that's fine. I
Yeah.
just want to clarify it.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
And
about.
make sure
No, I wasn't talking
there
about.
is no deadline in
You don't read
terms
the
of
newspaper.
information. The police department
No,
will
no,
take that information at any
no,
time.
no, no.
All right, very
They
good.
should know all about it.
With that, I don't have anything else.
Mr.
Tevin?
President, I move that Lima City Council adjourn until April the 20th at 7 PM in these chambers.
Second.
The motion and the second is Lima City Council adjourn until 7 PM on April 20th. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.